What's up, everybody? Charlie Marlowe here in my truck because it's 5,000 degrees out in St. Louis. We're going to talk some baseball. First of all, you got to check out my dad life. Look at this. Double car seats. 1, 2, American flag, of course. Double car seats. This is how I live. So, the Cardinals. Rough road trip so far, playing against these NL East teams. You lose the series at the Philadelphia Phillies. So far have lost the first 2 at the Atlanta Braves. So the Cardinals have lost 3 straight overall. Makes you wonder, are the Cardinals good or are the Cardinals NL Central good? Let's be honest, because Central, you got the Cards and the Brewers and basically nobody else. Cubs terrible, Pirates terrible, Reds terrible. NL East, you got the Mets. You got the Braves, the defending World Series champs. Phillies, pretty dang good. I have to think if the Phillies play in the NL Central, their record would be better. I think the Cardinals' record may be more like the Phillies if they played in the NL East. Even a team like the Marlins, right around 500, they can throw some stud pitching at you with Sandy Alcantara, Pablo Lopez. They're giving you a lot more of a fight than the Cubs, Reds, and Pirates in the NL Central. Right now, things aren't great for the Cardinals. Banged up. Hopefully you're getting Tyler O'Neill back soon. Steven Matz back soon. But right now they're struggling against some of these other contenders for playoff spots in the National League, especially the National League East. We talked about all of that on Hot Take Central this morning on 590 The Fan. Take a listen.
Every once in a while, they'll have a good series. They swept the Padres a while back. And you've had a lot of opportunities to win series against the Brewers, but then you always end up splitting those. But I just look at the Cardinals as a team that can beat up on the bad teams. And when they play the good teams, they don't look elite. They look like a team that's more often than not gonna drop 2 of 3 to those good teams. And that's what's gonna happen when you have no starting depth and you have no bullpen depth. You have a couple good starters and you have at this point 3 relievers you trust, but you have some guys coming on like a Zach Thompson. But even Palante got rocked last night. You love what he's done big picture, but Andre Palante as a rookie, as a starter for you, that guy's role is much better as your 4th best reliever.
Yeah. On
a good team.
Yeah, I mean, so in some regards, you haven't got the guys out there that you plan to have. I mean, the Steven Matz, you're supposed to be the stabilizer. You're supposed to be the guy that could turn it over. On the other hand, you've gotten more from some guys that think you planned. I think anybody would have taken this year from Miles Mikolas that you've gotten so far, but it's just not enough. And the thing that kind of concerns me is that I don't see the situation with this pitcher's getting better, just allowing it just to play out the way it is right now. I mean, they have been uncharacteristically aggressive with top prospects and bringing guys up, using guys like Hicks, experimenting with them, bringing up Liberatore, giving him the opportunities to pitch, and it hasn't been that pushover. So what are you going to do? What are you going to go out and do about it? I think that more so than any other years I can remember recently, this is a year where you've got to be willing to put something together to go out and add a guy to get over the hump, because they're grouped together with a lot of teams that it seems like maybe those Phillies, maybe the Giants, maybe some of those other teams that are at that level are a little bit better than them with the way the cards have been dealt. So I don't know. No pun intended. Cards have not been dealt great yet.
What do you think, Sir Nathaniel? I know that you were partying with the wealthy folk, but you had to watch a little bit and read up on some things, didn't you?
Yeah.
Greater good for the show.
Yeah, I mean, look, the key is that I do think what Charlie's saying is exactly right about beating up on the Pirates and the Reds of the world, and then when you go face stiffer competition, things get exposed. I mean, they're going through a little bit of a rough patch right here, and when you don't have starting pitching, which has been the problem the last 2 nights against the Braves, just getting out of the early innings, it makes it really tough, and then the bullpen is kind of screwed for the rest of the series. But the Braves are the reigning champs.
They're good.
I think to hit the panic button maybe means that you were probably drinking the Kool-Aid a little too strong when they were beating up on bad teams. I'm not ready to write off Palante. Dude's been terrific. But he had one bad start down in Atlanta. We do know, based on that ballpark, the ball flies down there. And so if you leave stuff up, it's going to get hit, and it has the last 2 nights.
Why is that?
just the way the ballpark's built. I don't know.
Really?
You never really know until a place is built how it's going to play. And the ball jumps out of Atlanta. And it's actually the highest. Did you know that Atlanta, Turner Field actually was, I'm not sure if it still is this. I would guess it is, the highest elevation stadium.
In Georgia?
Over course?
No way.
The second highest elevation.
It ain't a mile high.
So,
Wow.
Denver is
and
number
hot
one.
Atlanta.
Yep.
Not San Francisco? I guess it's in a little valley there, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, it's right by the water.
Charlie, I think the point that you make about where they play is an important one to heed, though, too. I mean, it can truly be your greatest benefit is the people that you get to play your most games against, though. I mean, and I think that in recent years, that's been something that's worked in the favor of both the Cardinals and the Brewers, honestly. And before that, even the Cubs a little bit. But, when you look at the NL East, the Braves are 48-34. They're in second place there, but they have been on fire since kind of limping out the gates a little bit. They've gotten healthy. They've got guys back. I think the Cardinals are seeing the best version of that team now that, had to get itself together a little bit. You lose a Freddie Freeman. You start the season without a Ronald Acuna. Swanson was a little bit slow out the gates. I mean, they weren't the team that they really are. But now you're seeing it. So, I think that it's good. I think it's good to see this. You got a lot of young guys that are getting hacks on this team. You got a lot of young guys on the mound. Hopefully what happens now is that they learn a little bit going through this. They come back here this weekend and they play better against that Philadelphia team that they just saw. That tells me what I need to know about a team is if they can take their lumps, and that's going to happen, but then you come back and you're in a better place afterwards.
Yeah, I just think that this year's team, and give a lot of credit to these rookies, but you're depending on about 7 of them.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, really,
Anderson just chimed in on that. Yep.
You're depending on how many position player rookies, and Donovan's been awesome, Nolan Gorman, Juan Yepes, but some of these pitchers, and I'm not calling Oviedo a rookie, but you're now counting on the guys like Zach Thompson, Johan Oviedo to be those middle-of-the-inning guys. You've brought up Liberatore. Palante was somebody who nobody really talked about until this year, but then he had a great spring. He was fantastic in the bullpen. He's been really good as a starter until last night. And after the game, Ali Marmol said maybe even the Braves had something on him in terms of maybe they picked up a tell in terms of what he was throwing. I don't know if that's the case because the Braves have a good lineup. But I think the issue is, the Cardinals had a pretty good minor league system and some guys ready to contribute. But it wasn't this Baltimore Orioles minor league system of just full of prospects at AAA. I mean, they got some big boys, Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn, that are more of a level away. But to me, so Derek Gould put a tweet out the other day, and I mean, it's pretty striking because we all talked about this, but when you see it and you see the numbers, it really hits home. You can make the case that this winter was probably the worst offseason that the Cardinals and John Mozeliak have ever had so far. Now, we're halfway through. Can some of these guys pick it up? We'll see. But when you look at the WAR of the players that they picked up in the offseason, so look at the 7 guys who have the lowest WAR on the Cardinals. Here's who they are. TJ McFarland, a lefty reliever you re-signed. Drew Verhagen, a right-handed reliever that you brought over from Japan. Nick Whitgren, another reliever you signed. Albert Pujols, we all know the story there. So Lars Nootbaar is the one guy of this crop of 7 that wasn't signed in the offseason. Steven Matz has been bad, but he's also injured. I'd call that one incomplete. I think we got to see Steven Matz healthy before we make any type of judgment. And, oh, by the way, he has a 4-year deal. And then Corey Dickerson. So you brought Corey Dickerson over to be that left-handed bat. So besides Lars Nootbaar, who is a 4th, 5th outfielder type, who's been up and down Cardinals in AAA, the other 6 guys that you signed or re-signed this offseason have either been hurt or terrible. And that's just being honest.
Yeah. So what do you think? They have all these prospects. If you had a bet, because you are a betting man, if you're going to throw anybody into the mix coming up on this trade deadline, who would it be?
Well, I think what's interesting about this year's Cardinals team and also their minor league system is for years, the Cardinals were always fantastic at drafting and developing legit pitching. They always had just tons of pitching ready to go. And then you saw in past years when they needed to acquire a bat, whether it's Marcell Ozuna, whether it's Goldie, whether it's Nolan Arenado, they almost always flipped pitching. Whether it was Sandy Alcantara, Zach Gallen, you can go to Austin Gomber. A lot of these, I know Carson Kelly was in the deal to Arizona.
Yeah.
Along with
with
Luke Weaver.
Luke Weaver and
Gallen, right?
I think
Gallen was in
Gallen was Miami.
was
Got traded
Ozuna.
there. Yeah.
But my point is, you always had this train of pitching, whether it was AA, AAA, that were ready to come up and help in the big leagues. And now I don't think you really have that anymore. So they may have to flip offense. They may have to flip bats now for pitching, which is what the Cardinals never had to do the last 10 years. You may have to flip somebody you don't want to get rid of, like a Juan Yepes.
Yeah. Man, interesting. Mitchie chimes in and goes, is there any elegant way to DFA Pujols? He's hurting the team and Bowtie and Gersh.
Well, probably the elegant way to do it is just to not play him. But that's probably not the you still got to sell your jerseys. I mean, people are traveling from far and wide to live their memories in real time.
I mean, he sold a lot of jerseys already. I don't know. I think Arenado's selling the jerseys right now, but yeah, people are complaining about that. Throwing in a towel in the World Series with Pujols playing, he's an absolute liability at this point.
Well, against righties. He's still a weapon against lefties. That's all that he should be. I do think, though, that conversation, it's part of a larger conversation, which earlier in the year, it seemed like the Cardinals were managing the nostalgia with winning, and now with Pujols' inability to hit righties at all, and with Yachty being injured, and also whatever happened with Yachty at the beginning of the season where he had that personal issue, I don't know what happened. But clearly, Yadier Molina did not show up to camp like he normally does, right? I think we can all
he was a little tubby.
Agree on that.
He was a little tubby.
That's what I'm saying.
Tubby.
Yadier Molina in his later years has always come into camp absolutely in fantastic shape. That was not the case this year, so he never really got going. Now he's injured. So when you look at the season, I understand why they tried to do these things. You bring back Albert, it's fun and all that. He can't hit righties at all. You bring back Yachty, probably 1 year too many. Yachty probably should have retired last year, but they're going for the record with Adam Wainwright. And I think when you start to weave all of this nostalgia and records and you're trying to win, it is hard to balance that with trying to win a World Series.
So when you talk about using pitching in any way that you're going to use it, whether you're using it as a trade chip or whether you're using it on a team this year, I mean, they have gone pretty deep in and pulled up some guys that in the past I think they would have took even more time with. Guys like Liberatore, guys like Thompson, etc. Because then after that you got a pretty big fall off in the system for guys that are even going to be ready to come up. I mean, Michael McGreevy was the first round pick last year. He's not ready to come up yet. I mean, he's at AA. He's a college guy. He'll probably be ready sooner than later, but he's right there. Tink Hintz is another promising young guy that they've got down in the system, but he's not ready yet. So
I know him.
I think that we went to,
we partied with him.
Yeah, but no.
No,
he probably does. So, I'm not in the bathrooms at concerts crew like Tink is. But the question I put that out there to say is that, Charlie, I don't know how much you believe in the untouchable or this is the level we won't go to no matter what. But the Cardinals seem to be in a tough situation where it's a lot of guys that have either playing a big part of your major league team, and it's addition by subtraction if you trade some of those guys out, or they're guys that are so far away that it's not going to impact you at all right now. So the Cardinals have a little bit of a prospect problem, I feel like, if you're just going to rely on that to get things done internally this year.
And you mentioned McGreevy. So McGreevy is at AA. And there's a guy where he probably profiles as a middle of the order, as a middle of the rotation guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't right now profile as an ace, but could he be a dependable number 3 starter type that gives you innings? Absolutely. So maybe that's a guy, because he's a couple levels away, maybe it makes sense to flip someone like that for a major league. Well, for a major league pitcher. And I say that because there are teams that aren't trying to win, but they say, hey, we're going to be pretty good for the next 2-3 years. So if we flip a pitcher who has 2 years of control left for McGreevy, who's not even in the big league, so the team would have 6 to 7 years of control, that type of move could make sense for both parties if you find the proper trade partner.
Interesting. Going way out of a limb here. Cards are wasting talent without going all in this season. I get worried that Arenado may opt out, especially with lack of urgency from the front office to address glaring needs. I have wild thoughts at times. Maybe the front office is okay with him leaving. Cards may no longer want to pay that $35 million a year. They have success of the rookies brought up this season, along with Wim and Walker on the way. There's a lot of payroll locked up in just Arenado and Goldie. Your thoughts? Thanks. I got to give myself credit for that one. I only messed up once. A pat on the back.
Well, let's be clear. I don't feel like the Cardinals are getting tired of Nolan Arenado being on the team or what he costs to be here.
My favorite.
I don't think that they're in coupon clipping mode where they're saying that's part of the game that they don't have to, that they're ready to get off. No matter what these rookies are doing or what they're pulling off this year, they're not him. You know, so nobody is. I think that they're part of his long-term plan, and this is a part, and he's obviously a part of theirs. But with that being said, I think that, the point you made earlier about saying that we had two different things. You had your competitive team earlier in the year, and then you had your parade team with Albert and Yachty and all those folks. But what's happened since that time that I think happened to a degree that nobody could have guessed coming into the year is you have had this explosion of rookies that are making an impact and have to get those at-bats and have to get that exposure. I mean, you look at Nolan Gorman, you look at Donovan, you look at Yepez, what all of them are doing, and that was even factoring in the fact that while Dylan Carlson was out, you were able to get more at-bats for him, but he's only in his second year. So the Cardinals have a lot of good problems, and I think that as it goes along, that just gives you a lot more strength to be able to pull in and make the right decision. But the part that's going to complicate it this year that I think that we've seen change over the last couple of years is the extra wild card spot. When you've got an extra wild card spot, there's going to be more teams that are in it longer, meaning that there's going to be less teams that want to trade off, and there's going to be more teams competing for what's out there. So if they're going to go out and make a move that's going to make the kind of difference that I think we're all saying that they probably need to do, they're going to probably have to come with a bigger package than you're used to historically.
Yeah, and it's easy for us here halfway through the season to make these evaluations, but also the Cardinals, they're in this business. So they should know their players, their personnel, their prospects better than we do. So, for example, now that we're 80-plus games in, I think it's fair to say they didn't need Pujols or Corey Dickerson. Now, if you're the Cardinals, you probably didn't want to depend on Juan Yepez and Nolan Gorman and Brendan Donovan, but all those guys have been much better and probably up here quicker and really contributing, certainly Donovan, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Yepez, remember, they send him down in spring. So if you'd have gone into the year and you had more of a big league profile on Yepez, Gorman, Donovan, you probably don't sign Corey Dickerson. You probably don't sign Albert Pujols. They don't need those guys.
I know.
And why is that? Because Donovan's been awesome, because Gorman is absolutely a weapon.
Dude, he looks like a man.
So is Juan Yepez. And look, man, Albert Pujols, first ballot Hall of Famer. We all love him. Does anybody at this point in his career want to see him taking a bat over Juan Yepez? Over
Not
any of these guys, really?
Not at all. And rightfully so,
I think Brendan Donovan's been the best revelation as far as a guy coming up who's not a top prospect, who's just kind of a guy that's come up and made the most of his opportunities since Matt Carpenter came up. Matt Carpenter came up, moved all over the place, did what you needed to do, and affirmed himself in a big way. And I think that Brendan Donovan's been that exact person for this team this year.
Bobby the Woodworker chimes in, hey, dude. Hey, guys, the starting pitching definitely sucks, but the injuries to Bader and O'Neill also hurt the offensive side. A few more hits with runners in scoring position would at least we'd have a game, Bob the Woodworker.
That's a good point.
I mean, O'Neill for sure.
Paul Goldschmidt, what Paul Goldschmidt turning into prime Pujols / Lou Gehrig over the last month or so has masked a whole lot of what we didn't plan on getting in town from Tyler O'Neill this year. Now, I think the point about saying that we're still not even about halfway through the season right now, still, that's the Tyler O'Neill case is one that I look at and I say, okay, we still got a good opportunity to get a lot from him if he can get straightened out. Because I think that the outfield truly has left a lot on the table that we could still see happen from this team this year.
Yeah, and that's another fair point. We've criticized the Cardinals as we should, especially for the offseason. It's also fair to say, and look, everybody goes through injuries, but the Cardinals essentially have had 40% of their starting rotation injured the whole year in the guy who's supposed to be your ace, Jack Flaherty, and your only real big-ticket free agent acquisition, Steven Matz, has been hurt or ineffective this season. That's 40% of your starting rotation, and essentially 2/3 of your outfield has been injured this whole year. Even when Harrison Bader was healthy, he was clearly banged up.
Well,
I mean,
he had that foot problem.
Well, he has the plantar fasciitis where he wasn't the same defender. And he was going out there, he said, in pain stealing bases. But Tyler O'Neill was 8th in the MVP last year. And this year, he so far hasn't really been an asset. And Harrison Bader last year was a 114 OPS plus Gold Glover. He wasn't even a plus defender this year. And he wasn't bringing really anything to the table offensively. And I think it's because of his foot injury. So if you get those guys back, you could see a bit of a surge in the second half because they have been pretty banged up.
So what you're saying is, if Bader didn't have that foot problem, he would have caught that ball with Michaelis.
No.
I mean, is that what you're saying, Charlie?
Here's the deal. The other day on this show,
He screwed him over. I'm just saying.
well, I think the positioning of Bader, they were basically playing in terms of we don't want to let a bloop in front of us. You're playing no doubles in that position if you have a big lead. The only reason he was playing in is because it was a no-hitter. So
I get you.
I don't even think that was that bad of a route. I just think it was kind of terrible luck that this hitter who is not supposed to burn you to the wall all of a sudden did that.
And no one had hit the ball hard that entire game to make you feel like you have to play deep.
Right, but the other day when we had that debate about Bader and defense and we looked up his stats, it was telling to me that a guy who has been a top 5-ish center fielder in baseball defensively ever since he's been up and has a Gold Glove, that he wasn't even a plus defender this year, according to Fielding Bible. And I think that speaks to the fact that this dude is not 100%.